All right, everybody, the bye weeks are here. But first, Dustin Barkley.
So this is your Week 4 ranking show.
They knew what it was.
Did they?
They did. Who didn't know? If you are surprised at what this show is, please comment below.
It doesn't hurt to at least tell people what
There's
to know.
zero chance everybody knew what was going on.
Okay. There's zero chance.
Shut up. I knew I messed it up immediately.
And congratulations to our FanDuel winner from last week. Kreger Baum took us down, and the experts. Close. Brent had a.
I got in the money.
Got in the money. My team did not work out. Tavius Murray. Who would have guessed? That was awful. But get into our FanDuel game. Click on the link in the description. They're not going to run our Beat the Experts game if we're not getting more interest. It's starting to get on the cusp of it getting cut off. So help us out. Get in there. If you haven't signed up for FanDuel yet, click on the link, sign up, deposit. It helps us out. And you can get into the game and play against us and the Beat the Experts. A lot of fun.
All right, let's get right back into them rankings. Week 4, as the president over there said, talking quarterbacks. And I'm not talking about, Mahomes. Obviously, he's good. I'm talking about Case Keenum. And you're going to hear me talk about guys like this, and it'll probably be in my FanDuel show. I love quarterbacks that go against Kansas City. Their defense is terrible. Their offense is great, so they put up a lot of points, so you have to pass to try to get back into the game. Boom! Case Keenum's going to do that. He'll have a big game along with my boy Sanders that I should have in more leagues, but I don't. So I say that like every week. But God, I loved him coming in. I knew he was going to be good.
So we always have kind of a tough time figuring out who's going to be the last person to make the list in the show. Because we always get called out if we leave someone off that just barely missed the cut. It was tough this week at the 20 spot with, we have Mayfield.
So yes, we thought about Mayfield.
Trubisky going up against Tampa Bay.
Didn't think too much about him, but Dustin wanted to.
I did. But Ryan Tannehill, the guy is just Mr. No respect. No one's giving him respect. No one's giving the Miami Dolphins respect. They're 3-0. I think they have to beat New England to finally get people's attention. It's at New England, but Tannehill's had 2+ touchdowns in every game so far. You got to think there's going to be some points to go around in this one. It's a divisional game, though. You never know. But Tannehill has looked extremely good, way better than most people thought, except for me. And I think he's a QB2 this week in a game that could have a lot of points.
$20 bet, New England wins the division.
Well,
you get everybody else.
New England's still a better team.
You get everybody else. $20 bet.
Go on to running backs. We'll talk later.
All right, let's talk about running backs. I'm talking about a New England running back, and my boy went on IR, Mr. Burkhead.
Yeah.
But that's okay, because every league that I had Burkhead, I was smart. And I did what we told you guys to do, and that's pick up Sony Michel a few weeks later, and a few rounds later, and I think that's really going to pan off. Because while they're saying, a lot of people are speculating Michel is going to be just early down and White's going to do all of the passing, Michel was still a first-round pick, and he can catch the ball. He had 14 touches last week for 50 yards. I think that there's a very good chance when this offense comes together, that's the reason Dustin won't take the bet, that Michel might be a big part of it. So if you can get him cheap right now, I would say do it. I think he's going to have a pretty good week this week. I hope this is coming out party.
I'm not saying the Dolphins are better than the Patriots. I'm just saying they're better than what people are giving them
respect. You're giving them no respect.
Yeah. Kerryon Johnson is a guy that's starting to earn a lot of people's respect out there with Detroit.
Respect my authority.
He was the first running back for Detroit to have over 100 rushing yards in a game since 2013.
It's insane.
I mean, I know that had been a thing for a couple years now, but it's still just, when you think about how long that is, that's insane. But the most important thing is he looked good out there. It wasn't just one long run. Like, it was a lot of consistent, solid runs, and it looks like Detroit may have finally found a serviceable running back.
All right, the next guy I'm going to talk about was probably on a lot of your benches last week, and it hurt you because he blew up, and he had 2 touchdowns, and he looked great, and that's Mr. Crowell for the Jets. But this week, we kind of have him as a flex option at best again, and that's because he's playing the Jags, and Powell's still in the mix. You can't necessarily look at last week and then base your lineup this week off of that, but I understand if you find a way to get him into your lineup. If the Jets move the ball, obviously he's going to get the goal down. He's going to get the goal line work. But the Jags are a solid D, and that front is ridiculous. So Just keep that in mind when putting him in or out of your lineup this week.
Talking about Jay Ajayi, it looks like he might come back this week. If he does, it's just this situation could just turn to a three-headed monster because Smallwood ended up getting more work than most people anticipated last week. Corey Clement did look pretty good, but I'd say right now, if he comes back and plays, he's probably going to be limited, or they might, they don't necessarily need to give him a full workload since they have two decent backs behind them. So that's why we got both these guys down this low. I mean, if you're looking for a flex option, obviously these guys can fit that, but we're not getting too excited about any of the Philly running backs this week. It just seems like there's too many teams doing that now, where they got like three guys getting carries, and it's like, can't you just at least narrow it down to two?
I already see zero running back coming back into vogue next year. I already see it, based on like the David Johnson and Bell drama.
Colts are doing it. The Packers are doing it.
All right, before we get into the wide receivers, if you have a question, Dustin, where should they leave their question?
Post it in the comments. Make sure you tell us if it's standard or PPR.
Who's going to be answering those questions?
We are. As many as we can. We try.
We got to a lot last week. But there's a lot of people that ask a question at 12:45 on a Sunday. I'm just saying it's less of a chance they're going to get answered.
Answer everyone else's questions if you feel confident enough to do so.
Yeah, help us out. Smack Talk community. All right, wide receivers. I'm talking about Juju Smith-Schuster.
He's been good.
Dude, he's been really good. And, basically a .75 PPR, 17 points, 29 points, 19 points. In that time frame, he's only had one touchdown, so he's been getting a ton of yards, so he's even very solid in standard leagues, but I love the targets. The last 2 weeks alone, he has had 30 targets total in 2 weeks. Everyone's looking at Brown. Connor's been good. We got to rank him here. There's no reason to think why he won't get those targets and produce again this week.
Robert Woods. We love the guy coming into the year, and he had somewhat of a slow start. I mean, he was involved. He was getting the targets. He had just, week 2, he just missed on a couple of big plays that didn't quite work out. But man, did it come together week 3. The guy was a touchdown machine. And it just seems like there's so many weapons on that offense. They're not going to have a big week every week. But Woods will be, all 3 of those receivers have a solid floor and a high upside every week. So for that point, with that reasoning, we think they're all kind of wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3-ish each week. So we got Woods just inside the top 20 with a somewhat tricky matchup against Minnesota, but we think there could be a lot of points in them.
So, thank goodness Woods blew up last week, because I had a gentleman, Mr. Halverson, texting me and was like, should I start Ridley or should I start Woods? And I was like, definitely Woods. And at the 1 o'clock games, I was feeling pretty bad because Ridley blew up. He had more touchdowns in the first half last week than Julio Jones, or equaled what he had all of last year, and that's 3. Obviously, Ridley's a talent. He's taking it over Sanu. We are not a huge fan of rookie wide receivers, but Matt Ryan looks pretty good. Obviously, he's looking at him quite a bit. He had 8 targets last week, had a $143, had those 3 touchdowns. But don't go crazy. Don't be trading, studs for this guy quite yet. Julio's still going to get the majority of the shares of targets out there, but clearly defenses cannot roll all the coverage onto Julio. Ridley's for real. This kid's going to be great.
Yeah, they are going to pay a little more attention to him now.
Definitely. He had such one-on-one coverage and he just dominated it. You can't do it anymore.
He looked good, though. Jakeem Grant is the guy I want to talk about with Miami.
Oh, here we go again.
So here's one thing I want to point out, too, with him. If your league counts return yards, he is very interesting. He has a decent floor each week because of it. Right now, he leads the league in return yards. And to me, he kind of looks like a mix between Sproles and Tyreek Hill. I mean, he's just so very quick. He can stop on a dime, lateral movements. You get him in space, he is one of the most dangerous players in the NFL that you've never heard of. I can guarantee you that. He's starting to make a name for himself, though, and with a matchup against New England, he's going to get maybe a few more touches because he might get a couple more kickoff returns if New England's putting some points on the board, which they normally do after a bad game. I don't know. I'm just saying Grant is a very interesting flex play this week. All it takes is one play for him to have a decent week.
As we go to tight ends, the curse of the name code keeper auction league continues. Le'Veon Bell, David Johnson, Jimmy G. Oh, in a 2 QB league, I loved having Jimmy G. And I loved having Kittle, who I have in that league as well. Thought it was a great pair up. Kittle's going to be great, but now Jimmy G's hurt, so it made me a little bit upset. But then you look a little closer into it. Beathard. CJ Beathard is now the starting quarterback for the 49ers. He played at Iowa with George Kittle.
There you go.
Hey, he might work out all right. We have Kittle ranked number 9 this week. You know, guys like Kyle Rudolph all are over him for a reason, just because we, respect the quarterback play a little bit more in Minnesota. But just kind of don't just drop Kittle and write him off if you had him. This might work out.
Jesse James, guy I want to talk about, blew up week 2. Everyone loved him. We did say, hey, it's gonna be a roller coaster ride for Jesse James. It certainly was week 3, getting 1 target, and we all saw what Vance did with his crazy stiff arm. So, we still love Jesse James. We still think he's gonna have big games, but it's just hard to count on him. Him and Disley, those guys, they're fun. They're gonna have big weeks, but it's just anyone's guess when they're coming. So that's why he's down so low.
Disley's best days have already happened. I never respected it. I still don't.
It's probably. He'll have a couple more good ones, but maybe not that good.
Maybe 2. Maybe 2 more good ones. I guess
right.
that's a couple. All right, number 4 ranked defense this week that we got is the Bears. And why I want to talk about them is I saw some people be like, should I drop the Bears because they're playing that red hot Fitzmagic Tampa Bay offense?
And then they have a bye next week.
But this week, I don't care. You're playing them against Tampa Bay. You saw what Fitzmagic did. He still threw a bunch of picks. He looked really bad in the first half. He obviously looked better in the second half, but the defense was playing him a little bit differently. And the Bears' defense is solid. They're pretty much, in my opinion, matchup proof at this point. If you have them, you're going to roll with them until otherwise noted. They get at the quarterback. They get sacks. They can get turnovers. I like the Bears again this week, even though they are playing, what's insane to say, a high-powered Tampa Bay Buck offense. Who would have thought? The NFL season's been nuts this year.
It has been crazy. Green Bay's who I want to talk about going up against the rookie Josh Allen, and we saw what Allen did last week.
Talk about nuts.
So what was supposed to be a pretty decent defense, but Green Bay's going to have a chance to game plan as long as Clay Matthews can tackle Allen without putting his weight on him and avoid all those.
They're changing that though. The rules committee called and was like, stop doing it so much.
We'll see.
It's a good thing. But it'll change.
I think the Packers will have some success against the rookie. I think they'll game plan for it. I think it's a solid and they're available in a lot of leagues. I think it's a solid pick up and play defense for this league. So get your questions in. And also answer questions like we talked about if you're feeling it. Subscribe. Get into our FanDuel game. Give us some thumbs up. Good luck week 4.